This is our Cymatic project, and we're all
architecture students from BMS School of Architecture.
So Cymatics is a science or an art form that studies visual sound when sound is introduced to a medium, solid, liquid or gas. So certain frequencies form certain patterns, certain visuals, which is further studied. So it's termed as cymatics.
When we started thinking about what we can do for this project, we had actually come across a different sect of a similar study, which is more Vedic in nature. So we had come across a certain type of yantra or a type of mandala in which we can sort of create energies out of it. That was the first inspiration for cymatics in the beginning, and from that we have gone to sacred geometry because there's a lot of correlation between Vedic knowledge and sacred geometry. From sacred geometry, we had come to the idea of sound as being one of the biggest influences on matter. So when we talk about the blueprint of the universe or how everything is actually made fundamentally, it comes back to sound and sacred geometry. And so that's how we came up with cymatics. We didn't come up with cymatics, that's how we found cymatics, and this is how we found the inspiration for our project. So why cymatics? Like I just said, sound is a fundamental force that creates matter. So it shapes matter and brings everything its form. So through the understanding of cymatics, we can understand how matter is created, how it's formed, and how we can utilize that for many modern day applications.
So there are three aspects to this entire thing: mental, physical and spiritual or emotional. In terms of the physical well-being, cymatics plays an important role in the medical industry. We use sound vibration and vibration therapy to treat cancer. So we have something called oncotripsy. Onco refers to sound and tripsy refers to the breakdown of the cell. So when you expose the cancerous cells to a high frequency sound over 1000 Hertz, it essentially generates heat in the cell and makes it explode. So this is how cancer is treated with respect to cymatics. In terms of mental well-being, we all know that we have 5 different brain waves: alpha, delta, beta, theta and gamma. So exposure to different sounds and different vibrations can influence your conscious state. So for example, if we want to reach a highly meditative state, which is the alpha state, we will expose ourselves to frequencies that correlate with that brain wave. Similarly, we use that for gamma, which is a state of high consciousness, and delta, which is for deep sleep. In terms of spiritual well-being, we have cymatics, which is related to our mental well-being, and we can use it in centers, spiritual centers or meditative centers to reach altered states of consciousness.
Yeah. So chiming in on that, you can have frequencies that correlate with different chakras to the human body. That's also bringing an aspect of the Vedic knowledge. So you have 5 different chakras.
Yes.
So each different chakra has a correlated frequency to go with it. So does the solfeggio series. So each of those frequencies will actually help benefit each of those chakras. So that's what you can take into consideration when you're trying to do spiritual well-being. So when we're trying to link cymatics to ancient knowledge, especially our Vedic knowledge, we come across things such as mantra, yantra and tantra. Mantra is usually a chant or a bij mantra or a sound that specifically is used to invoke an energy, whereas yantra is usually seen as a geometrical pattern or some sort of machinery that holds the energy or of a particular energy. So what we're trying to do with this is bring back that ancient knowledge that has been used for centuries in rituals and traditions and see how it's being correlated with modern science. So if you think about a yantra, how it is a device to create energy or to invoke energies and bring it into a certain space or center. With cymatics, we can actually see how when you pass a frequency through a medium, you actually get these sacred geometrical patterns coming out of it. So that's like a direct correlation between sacred geometry and cymatics.
So he spoke about cymatics in the Vedic literature. Cymatics is also studied by the Greeks, the ancient Greeks, where Plato referred to the platonic solid. So he said when sound is passed through water, it creates patterns, and platonic solid is observed in these patterns. And he said that these solids are a sort of universal map, like it creates the universe, and they're also termed as sacred geometry. So when these patterns are all put together in a circle, it's called the Metatron. And so the different patterns are the tetrahedron, the octahedron, the dodecahedron, and all of these patterns relate to certain elements of earth, fire, water. And these studies were done back in the day, like ancient Greek, and is now again resurfacing back to the modern era and used in sound therapy with help of instruments, or it's used just in general musical instruments to listen to, and very what else, gongs are used for basic healing and etc.
So I think the root cause behind this entire study is a relearning of sorts. We already had this in our tradition, we already had this in our culture, but it's something that we have probably forgotten over the years or have not utilized over the years. And now in modern day science, it's like going around in circles to find something that we already knew before. So by bringing these concepts to the surface, it can make our lives much easier by using them in pair with modern day science.
Yeah, so we're just relearning and it's coming back to the surface, and I think we as architects would want to design wellness centers. At least I am interested in wellness centers and getting that back.
So there are many potential applications for cymatics and the use of sound. Like we had talked about the cancer cells and how we could pinpoint them and then explode them inside the body so that they can, get rid of cancer. If you knew the certain frequency of an element, for example, you would be able to manipulate in many sorts of ways. You maybe could lift it, you could move it, you could change its form. So there are a lot of theoretical applications towards the use of sound.
No, I think it's cool that it was all his idea and it was a completely different start, but we ended up here. And it's the fact that we just went with it and we did it. So I think, so it comes back to just go ahead and do it.
Honestly, stop stopping is a pretty cool mantra to have, because once you really do stop stopping, you can discover much more that's there in multiple avenues.
Yeah, because we didn't expect to be here. Like, it's something just sort of pulled us, and we just kept going with it, and then it just sort of accumulated into something that we can now say is a pretty cool project, and we have a lot to share with everyone out there.
Most insignificant project, but now I think it's pretty cool. And the best part is, like, we like it, like, we really like what our work is, and that's something cool. Yeah. That's a good thing.
Also, it's about changing mindset, I think, to an extent. As young adults, and I think as teenagers, we have a lot of cynicism behind our tradition. We don't want to accept something, we think it's superstitious. But when we perform projects like this and we see that it's actually backed by science, you see there's some truth to what our traditions have, to what our values had before. It
really opens your eyes to a larger understanding or a greater understanding of how everything actually works and what our significance is, because when you see this in person, you cannot not accept it because it's actually been proved. It's in front of your eyes. So it actually brings you back to many of the ancient traditions, because you start to see the value in many of the things that our ancestors used to preach.
So I think the way forward in terms of our project is a very subjective thing. So different people will view our project in a different way. For example, if you take it from a purely scientific point of view, you look at it as how a medium is behaving under vibrations. If you look at it in a spiritual way, you can see how we connected the dots in our universe today, how we've connected different patterns together, how we've stitched everything together. So yeah, this is, it means different things to different people, and that's the unique selling point of our whole project. So you can take it forward in whatever way you want to take it forward.
Yeah, it's a universal understanding. So whatever it means to you, just go explore. So this is our experiment to find out all the patterns you get out of water when it's been influenced by frequency. Inside the box, we have a subwoofer that's connected to a main speaker. The main speaker is connected to the computer, which has a tone generator and the binaural frequencies that are actually played into the water. And that's about it. We just have a cup on the top which holds the water, and in that water you will see the frequencies.
So the frequency generated from the laptop is seen through the water. So that's what we're doing.
And inside we have a ring light attachment that's just to view the patterns a little bit better.
Yes, the light actually illuminates the different patterns that are being formed on top of the water. So exactly what happens is, in the water, when the resonance is happening through the water, it creates
A crest and a trough.
A crest and a trough.
It creates a crest and a trough. So the water itself is oscillating back and forth, and that pattern is visible when we turn on the light inside.
Yeah, that makes it more visible.
Okay, so there are a couple of different parameters that we kept in mind when we were performing this project. Number one is the volume of water. There's a certain limited volume that we can have so that the pattern shows up clearly. Two is with relation to binaural frequencies. So binaural refers to left and right. So we have different frequencies that we're playing from the left ear and the right ear. Essentially what happens when we listen to a binaural frequency is they both squelch inside the brain. But here the output that we have with water, which is a different medium, is obviously different. So we've taken the 10 and the 12 hertz frequencies right now, which are infrasound frequencies. And this is a specific pattern that you get if you play this kind of frequency. So in terms of replicating the experiment, we also keep in mind the size and shape of the container, the volume of water that it can hold, the medium itself, which in our experiment we've used water. And then you also have to keep in mind the frequency that we're using. We've used an infrasound frequency, but different frequencies will generate different shapes. We've also used binaural, which is 2 frequencies at a time. If you use a singular frequency, it will generate a different shape. If you use more than 3 frequencies, it will generate a different shape, and so on.
So this experiment, we have gone online and found an online tone generator. In this case, we are using a binaural. This frequency through the speaker, and the subwoofer actually receives all of the bass infrared sound. So on top of the subwoofer, we put the container on top of it, so it actually vibrates all of the frequency up and down, creating the patterns on the water.